You stand outside a steel door built into the side of a hill. Behind you, the sky is the color of a bruise. The power's been out in your neighborhood for 6 days. The grocery store 2 blocks from your apartment burned down last week and nobody bothered putting it out. You have $340 in your checking account and a daughter who asks every night if the lights are coming back on. You don't have an answer for her anymore. A flyer brought you here. Plain white paper, stapled to a telephone pole outside the laundromat. The Hollow. Shelter for those who work. No address, just a phone number and a date. You called. A woman with a flat, careful voice told you to be at this hill at sunrise, alone, with nothing but your hands. The door opens before you knock. A man in gray coveralls looks you up and down like he's pricing livestock. "You any good with your hands?" he asks. You tell him you've poured concrete for 15 years. He nods once and steps aside. That's the whole interview. Level 1. The applicant. You walk down a ramp cut into rock. The air gets cooler with every step, then colder. Then it stops feeling like air at all and starts feeling like the inside of a refrigerator that's never been opened. They hand you a card with a number on it. 41. That's you now, not your name. 41. They explain the deal in under 2 minutes. You work, you eat. You stop working, you don't. There are 300 people down here already, and the man in the coveralls tells you that number used to be enough. It isn't anymore. New tunnels need digging. New walls need pouring. You know concrete. Good. You start tomorrow. You sleep that night on a cot in a room with 11 other men. Nobody talks. Somewhere above you, your wife and daughter are sleeping in an apartment with no power, waiting for you to come back with good news. You don't know yet if you have any. Level 2. The digger. 6 months pass underground before you see the sun again, and when you finally do, it's through a narrow vent shaft, just a coin of gray light 40 feet up. You spend your days widening tunnels that the Hollow calls expansion and you call exhausting. Your hands stop being hands and start being tools the project uses until it doesn't need them anymore. You learn the geography of the place in pieces. The lower levels, where you sleep, are concrete and bare bulbs. Somewhere above that, there's a level with carpet. You've never seen it. You've only heard about it from a man named Corliss, who used to work maintenance up there before he got reassigned down to digging with you. He doesn't say why he got reassigned. You don't ask. You earn the right to bring 2 people in. That's the system. Labor buys slots. You think about your wife and your daughter every single hour you're swinging a pickaxe, and after 6 months of work, you finally have enough credit bank to bring them down. You go up to make the request, and a woman behind a steel desk tells you the waiting list moved. There's a new family ahead of yours, a doctor and his 2 kids. Skills the Hollow needs more than concrete pourers right now. You can keep your slots, she says. They just don't expire. You walk back down into the tunnels feeling like you swallowed a stone. Level 3. The watchman. 2 years in, they pull you off digging and hand you a rifle you've never fired in your life. 3 days of training, mostly about who to let near the gate and who to turn away. There's an outer perimeter now, a ring of motion sensors and cameras feeding into a small room where you sit for 12-hour shifts watching a world fall apart in grainy black and white. People come to the gate almost every week. Some walk for days to get here. They've heard rumors, the way you heard a rumor once, stapled to a telephone pole somewhere. You're supposed to radio it in and wait for instructions. Most of the time, the instructions are the same word. Hold. A woman comes to the gate in October with 2 children younger than your daughter. She says she'll do anything. Clean, cook, dig, anything. You radio it in. Hold, the voice says. You watch her on the camera for 6 hours, sitting against the hillside with her kids huddled into her coat, before she finally gives up and walks back into the tree line. You don't sleep that night. You tell yourself there was nothing you could do. You almost believe it. Your daughter turns 9 that month, somewhere up above you, in an apartment you haven't seen in 2 years. You send a letter through the one courier who's allowed to leave. You don't know if it ever reaches her. Level 4. The quartermaster. You get moved to inventory. It's a promotion, they tell you, and for the first time since you walked through that steel door, you believe it. You're in charge of food now. Grain, canned protein, water purification tablets, medicine. You know exactly how much the hollow has and exactly how long it will last at current population, and the number keeps you up at night more than the rifle ever did. There are 412 people down here now. The math doesn't work past 11 months unless something changes. You bring this to the council, a name you've heard whispered but never confirmed exists as an actual group of actual people. A man named Director Pell meets with you instead. He's calm. He says the math will work itself out. You don't understand what that means until the following week, when 23 names get quietly moved from active resident status to something called reserve status. Reserve residents don't get full rations. Reserve residents are usually the elderly, or the sick, or anyone who stopped being useful enough to justify their portion size. You're the one who signs off on the new ration sheets, your signature, not Pell's. You tell yourself you're just the messenger. You start sleeping with the ration ledger under your pillow, like someone might come take it from you in the night, like that would somehow undo what's written in it. Level 5, the liaison. They send you back up to the surface for the first time in 3 years. Your job is simple on paper. Go to nearby settlements, trade hollow medicine and tools for things the hollow needs, and quietly evaluate whether any of those settlements have people worth recruiting. The surface is worse than you imagined it from a vent shaft 40 feet up. The town 2 miles from the hill is half burned and fully empty. You find people living in a parking garage, rationing rainwater, trading bullets like currency because actual currency stopped meaning anything a year ago. You trade them antibiotics for a generator and a box of hand tools, and you watch their faces when they realize what they just got. It's the same look you probably had 3 years ago, standing outside that steel door. You ask around about your old apartment building. Someone tells you it's gone, burned in the same wave that took the grocery store. You don't ask if anyone made it out. You're afraid of which answer you actually want to hear. When you report back to Pell, you tell him about the parking garage survivors. Good workers, you say. Strong, no entitlement issues. He thanks you and writes nothing down. 3 weeks later, you learn the official recruitment quota for the quarter has already been filled by depositors. People who paid the hollow in gold and silver instead of labor. The parking garage never had a chance. You knew that, somewhere, before you even reported it. You did it anyway. Level 6, the selector. You're given a binder, 211 applications, families and individuals who've requested entry over the past 6 years, each with a number assigned based on skills, age, health, and what the binder calls long-term value projection. 11 slots just opened. Someone has to choose who fills them. That someone is you now. You sit alone in a room with a folder of 211 lives and a pen, and you start sorting. A structural engineer, 44 years old, healthy, in. A retired school teacher, 61, history of high blood pressure, out. A single mother with 3 children under 10, no marketable trade skills. You stare at that one for 11 minutes before you set it aside, unmarked, and move to the next file. You finish the list at 2 in the morning, 11 names. You tell yourself the long-term value projection isn't your math, it's the system's math, and you're just the one reading the numbers out loud. You believe that for about as long as it takes to fall asleep. The next morning, you check your own family's file out of habit, the one you've never been allowed to update since you arrived. Your wife's entry still says occupation unknown, last verified contact 4 years ago. Your daughter's entry just says minor, no skills listed. You realize, looking at those 2 lines, exactly how someone like you would have scored someone like them. You close the folder before you finish the thought. Level 7, the enforcer. A man named Davies gets caught skimming rations meant for the children's ward, trading them on a back channel for cigarette substitute and extra blanket allotments. The council decides he needs to be made an example of, and they decide you're the one who makes examples now. You don't hurt anyone. That's not the job, not exactly. The job is colder than that. You strip Davies of his level, drop him back to ration tier 1, reassign him to the worst tunnel rotation, and announce the reason to the entire lower level over the speaker system so everyone understands what skimming costs. Davies looks at you the whole time you're reading it out. He doesn't say anything. he doesn't have to. 2 more cases come your way that month. A woman caught hoarding water purification tablets, scared for her sick son. A teenager caught sneaking up to the surface just to see the sky for 10 minutes. You enforce the same way both times, exactly, evenly, because evenly is the only thing that keeps 400 people from deciding the rules don't apply to them. You start to understand why Pell always looked so calm. Calm is just distance, worn long enough that it stops feeling like a costume. Level 8, the architect. They finally let you see the upper level. Carpet, real carpet, soft under boots that have spent 6 years on concrete. There's a dining hall up here with actual chairs, and behind a door marked authorized only, there's a second set of tunnels nobody below ever hears about. An escape route. A separate, smaller bunker built 3 years before the main one, fully stocked, fully sealed. Built quietly using funds that were supposed to go toward expanding capacity for everyone else. You're shown this because you're being trusted with maintaining it now. 40 people have a guaranteed seat in this second bunker if the main one ever fails or floods or runs out. You recognize some of the names on that list. Pell's family, 2 other council members, wealthy depositors who paid for this specific guarantee in gold nobody else ever saw. You ask, carefully, why nobody mentioned this existed. The answer is short. Because people down there don't need to carry that weight. You walk back to your quarters and you sit on the edge of your cot for a long time, holding a set of access codes that could save 40 very specific people while 370 others would never even know there was a door they weren't invited through. Level 9, the council. You're given a seat at the table. 6 other people, Pell at the head, deciding policy for everyone living below the carpet line. Your first vote is about lowering the active resident cap by 30 people to extend supplies through a harder winter. You ask which 30. Pell tells you that's not how the vote works. You vote on the number. Someone else handles the names. You learn the council operates almost entirely this way. Decide the math first. Never look at the faces attached to it. Let someone 2 levels down carry the names so the people signing off can sleep at night. You start to understand the entire architecture of the hollow isn't really about shelter. It's about distance, stacked floor by floor, so that no single person ever has to feel the full weight of what keeps the lights on down here. You finally pull your family's file again, this time with council clearance. 4 years of silence ends with 1 line, added 8 months ago by a field courier you never met. Apartment building destroyed in fire. No survivors located. You read it 3 times before it becomes real. You think about every binder, every ration sheet, every selection list you ever signed. All of it done in their names, none of it ever reaching them. You don't tell anyone on the council. There's nothing left to negotiate for. Level 10, the last key holder. Pell retires quietly, the way people quietly disappear from the upper level, and the council votes you into his seat. You're the one who carries the final authorization now, the codes that seal every door in the hollow permanently if the surface situation ever crosses a line the founders wrote down 7 years ago and never showed anyone outside the council. That line gets crossed on a Tuesday. A surge of refugees hits the outer perimeter, hundreds of them. More people than the hollow has held in its entire existence, all of them desperate, all of them with nowhere else standing for 100 miles. The watchmen call it in. The council calls an emergency vote. Seal the gates, permanently. No more admissions, ever, regardless of slots, credits, or promises made years ago to people still waiting on a list somewhere in a binder you used to fill out by hand. You're the one who has to turn the key. You stand in front of the door for a long moment. The same kind of steel door you walked through 7 years ago, with $340 in your account and a daughter who isn't anywhere anymore to ask you if the lights are coming back on. You think about the woman with 2 children you watched walk back into the tree line on a camera screen years ago. You think about every name you crossed off a list, every ration cut you signed, every door inside this place you didn't even know existed until they decided you were trusted enough to guard it. You turn the key. The gates seal with a sound like a held breath finally released. Somewhere outside, people are still walking toward a hill they'll never get inside of, following a rumor that used to be true. You stand in the dim light of the control room, the last person who will ever decide who gets to come in, and you understand, fully and finally, that you stopped being someone who needed shelter a long time ago. You became the door.